Hey everyone, welcome to a new video from Rope for a Cue. This is my post-Christmas special in that I'm going to take a look at a gift I received from my wife, thank you Nikki. And it's something you may have heard of before, something that's going to help with my aim point on the cue ball basically, and my aim point on the red object ball essentially. So it probably does more than that, but that's basically where I'm at the moment in terms of the sort of tutorials and things I've watched. So it is basically Chris Henry's balls. I mean, not those balls, these balls. Chris Henry is a snooker coach you may have heard of. He's worked with some pretty big pros, Sean Murphy, I think, among others. And so what these are is essentially training snooker balls, kind of like training golf balls, in that they're the exact same size as a snooker ball, which is 53 millimeters, can't remember, 2 1/8 of an inch. Don't quote me on that. But they are about 10% the weight. So these are about sort of, 15 grams. Normal snooker ball is about 143 grams. These are about 15 grams. So they're about 10% of the weight. So they're very, very light. And they're slightly weighted in such a way that they will amplify any side spin that you put on the ball, in that it will, if you put any side spin on in this white ball, it won't go straight, and it will show you which direction it's going. And it allows you to fine tune where you're hitting on the cue ball. It also comes with an object ball, in this case a red ball. And what this does is you can use this in combination with a normal cue ball. There's probably other routines you can do with both balls, but I haven't got there yet. But this one in particular you can use with a normal cue ball, and if you try and hit the middle of the object ball with the normal cue ball, this should go straight. If you're even slightly out, this goes in the direction, the opposite direction of the side of the red that you hit. And there you can fine tune your aim point essentially. And so these are something that were recommended to me. They're quite expensive, I'm not going to lie. Probably a little bit more expensive than what they look, considering. But they're not like exactly a mass-produced item, so it's kind of understandable that some of it is some of the cost is to do with the R&D and not just the manufacturer. So yeah, they are quite expensive. But let's take a look at some of the beginner routines that I'm going to be taking a look at. And then essentially I'm going to do a long-term series where I graduate up the levels or the lessons, and we'll do each one as we go. But for the moment, let's take a look at the beginner ones. So the first routine I'm going to try is just going to involve the Chris Henry cue ball. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this behind the pink spot in line with the pocket. Now these balls are slightly weighted, and if you don't get them settled, they roll around, so they kind of got to find the balance point first and then move them into position. So the aim of this exercise is to simply pop the cue ball into the corner pocket, and it's all about hitting the middle of the cue ball basically and delivering the cue straight through. And if you do it from here, then essentially you move it back. And then if you can do it all the way back to, somewhere around here, then you move it to the blue spot, I think. And again, move it backwards. And eventually you put it on the brown spot. And the idea is that's the hardest one, is to pot it from the brown spot. So let's see if I can do this very simple one. So yeah, it went in. It wasn't in the middle of the pocket though, so I was giving it, because it went to the left side of the pocket, so I'm hitting the cue ball too far right. So this time I'm going to try and move my aim point slightly left. That's better. I didn't need a time lapse. That was pretty much straight in. I mean, I could keep practicing that, try and get it right, so I could get it, if I'm doing this properly and not for a video, I would probably do that 3 times in a row, or rather, I wouldn't move on to the next shot until I'd done that 3 times in a row to try and adjust to ensure that my aim was starting to adjust. And eventually, doing it enough times, it means it becomes, the default aim point for me. But for the purposes of the video, I'm going to move it backwards. So I'm going to move it back about 6 inches. Same again though, in line with the pink spot. This table a bit dirty. Roughly in line with the pink spot. And do the same again. Okay, slightly left again. So we'll try that again. I'm not using a ball marker or anything, so I'm just going to do it roughly where it is the same place. So slightly left again, so that means I was aiming slightly right, so I need to try and remember to adjust and aim slightly left. It was better, but it still caught the left jaw a little bit. So I'm going to try again. Cue a time lapse of all my attempts. Hopefully me saying that will mean that I'll get it right this time. That was better. So you get the idea with that. So now we move it to the blue spot, or just behind the blue spot, and we try it again. As a right-hander, I'm going to do this on this side of the table so I can reach over for it. Nowhere near. The good part is, if you do get it nowhere near, it tends to come back to you. No. I'm just going to adjust the camera angle a little bit because it's still pointing at the pink spot. That was good, but it kind of curved and then rolled back in, so I suggest it wasn't still quite right. No, still slightly right. So that went in, but again, it kind of went left first of all, then came back right, as if the wind caught it. So I'm still going left, even though I think I'm hitting the center of the cue ball. So it means I'm hitting it slightly right. So on this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to deliberately hit it sort of half a cue width, half a cue tip width to the left, and see if it does go right. And if it does, I know that I need to somewhere in between the two. This looks to me like about half a cue tip to the left. But it was perfect. What's that all about? Let's try that again. So, about half a cue tip from what I think should be the middle of the cue ball. And again, went slightly left, but went in the pocket. Okay, so as I say, if I'm doing this properly without the camera, without the video, I would do that until I got it 3 times in a row and I was happy with it. But for now, let's put it on the brown spot and see if I can manage from the hardest position. So here we are from the brown spot, or rather just behind the brown spot. As I said, don't want to put it on the actual spots if you can. Avoid it. So this is the hardest one. So here I'm not aiming at the full pocket, so I'm aiming at the sort of first or second stitch on the pocket lining. And let's see where I managed to get it. So as before, I was seem like aiming slightly left to what I think is the center of the cue ball seems to be about right for me. So let's try that from the outset. So I'm still going left. So it's got to be about the delivery rather than the actual aim point. Still went a little left. So let's slip into a time lapse, unless of course I do it next go, of my many attempts. Better. So that's it for this video. So that's the first routine you can do with these Chris Henry balls. Join me in the next video when we take a look at the first routine you can do with the red object ball and a standard cue ball.